When the world was ushering in the year 2020, Tokyo was putting its final touches to its preparations to host the biggest sporting carnival on the planet, the 2020 Olympics. After a 4-year wait, it was once again time to celebrate the Olympics. But as athletes warmed up for the Games, the world began to feel a different type of heat, that of a looming health crisis. On March 11th, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. But staying true to its symbol of hope and bringing people together, the 2020 Olympic torch journey started. On March 12th, the Olympic flame was lit in Olympia, Greece, setting the pace for the planned lighting of the Olympic torch in Tokyo during the opening ceremony. However, COVID-19 continued to spread to all corners of the globe during that season, forcing many countries to shut down. On March 24th, the International Olympics Committee and Japan jointly announced the unprecedented postponement of the Tokyo 2020 Summer and Paralympic Games by a year to 2021. Tokyo 2020 became the first ever Olympics cancelled during peacetime and the fourth in the Olympics' modern history. The postponement of the Games caused a seismic shock among sportsmen and women worldwide. CGTN Africa takes you on a journey to uncover the impact the Olympics pushback has had on the Tokyo 2020 qualifiers across Africa, how they've adjusted and their thoughts on the 2021 Games. CGTN's Richard Nta joins us now for our first installment.
Thank you for joining us. We are coming to you from the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani in Nairobi, Kenya. For the next 4 days, we will bring to you CGTN's special series, The Olympic Dream Lives On. Had everything gone to plan, the Japanese capital, Tokyo, would have been the center of the entire sporting world. However, the biggest international sporting event was postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. CGTN's Mohammed Abubakar tells us more.
Since the advent of the modern Olympic Games in 1896, the best athletes from all over the world have converged every 4 years to live the Olympic dream. Recent editions of the Summer Games have gifted the world immortal sporting moments. At Atlanta 1996, Nigeria made history when they became the first African nation to win a football Olympic gold. Jamaica's Usain Bolt stunned the world when he broke the 100 and 200 meters sprint records at Beijing 2008.
With Solomon finishing, but Rhodesia, what's the time? It's a world record!
In London 4 years later, Kenya's David Rudisha became an instant legend when he became the first man to break a world record in 800 meters at the Olympics.
1:40.91 is shown on the clock.
And South Africa's Wade van Niekerk produced a performance of all ages when he set the men 400 meters world record in Rio 2016. The world, however, will have to wait a little bit longer to witness such iconic moments. In March, the International Olympics Committee and host Japan announced the Tokyo 2020 Olympics had been pushed to 2021.
The World Health Organization speaks of the acceleration of the spreading of the virus. So we were addressing this situation and came to the conclusion that in order to safeguard the health of the athletes and everybody involved in the Olympic Games, that we have to postpone.
This put a halt to final preparations of athletes from over 200 countries as the coronavirus pandemic claimed the biggest sporting carnival. Athletes and fans now hope the Tokyo 2020 Games will finally run from the 23rd of July to the 8th of August next year. Sporting cathedrals around the world like this one have fallen silent due to the coronavirus pandemic. But as we shift towards post-COVID-19 action, the best sporting talent around the globe continue to prepare for a shot at Olympics glory. Mohamed Abubakar for CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Well, the Egyptian duo of Sama Farouk and Ali Hassan punched their Olympics tickets for the first time by winning the African Canoe Kayak Championships last November. Well, 20-year-old Sama even dropped out of her sophomore year final exams in the School of Arts, the Turkish section, to pursue her Olympic dreams. CGTN's Adel Al-Mahroui brings us more on that.
It's been more than 3 months since the Egyptian canoe and kayak national team last gathered. The 22-year-old women's kayak national champion Sama Farouk has missed her teammates. She hasn't seen them since the COVID-19 lockdown last March. Today they meet on the Nile bank in Cairo, but they should have been in Japan instead. That's before the Tokyo 2020 Olympics were postponed to next year.
I was shocked when the Olympics got delayed. I've planned my life on it. I postponed my education for it. I understand why it had to be pushed. The world was falling apart. I tried to keep pushing myself from that feeling by imagining how it will be like on my first Olympics.
Sama is a sophomore of Turkish studies in Cairo University. She has dropped out of her final exams this year to focus on Tokyo. Due to the postponement of the Olympics because of the pandemic, another year will be added to her academic studies. But to her, this is a little price to pay over her Olympics dream.
Months back, we didn't have any hopes to achieve something in Tokyo. Now, I think we have a chance. My first step is to focus on breaking the African record. The next step will be to compete in Final B or Final A categories.
Since 2012, kayaking has been Sama's life. Once she sets her boat in the Nile, it's the start of a mental and physical race, setting her eyes on the next challenge. She has won 9 African and 7 Arab titles, besides sweeping all domestic honors in the past 8 years. But throughout this successful journey, nothing has slowed her down like the COVID-19 lockdown.
Kayak needs balance, so when we stayed at home for all that time, we needed to work on our balance all over again. This was the biggest challenge during the lockdown.
Sama is currently ranked number 32 globally in the 200 meters women's single race. This ambitious girl has so far won 112 medals and counting. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
South Africa is aiming to send not just 1 but 2 divers to the Tokyo 2020 Games in 2021 with ambitions of not just making up the numbers in the highly competitive 3 meters springboard event. Now, one of the Olympic hopefuls, Michaela Bouter, despite the postponement, she is determined to mix it up with the best divers in the world. Our correspondent, CGTN's C.S. Duplessis, brings us more.
Ever since Michaela Bouter was a little girl, the only thing on her mind was to be an Olympian.
I remember when I was little, after watching the event, I would go into my backyard to my garden and I would announce my name and my country and my dive. And I would professionally march onto my trampoline and I would perform a movement on my trampoline and kind of simulate the crowd going wild. And I have now been to World Championships and I've now been to Commonwealth Games, and the only one left from my garden simulations is the Olympics.
The African champion had one last hurdle before realizing her dream, the South African National Championships. But sadly, the event was postponed, and shortly afterwards, the news broke that the Olympic Games too had been postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, forcing her to take a break from training and rendering facilities normally bustling with athletes empty.
It's been more mentally frustrating because I'd kind of been training for 4 years leading up to these Olympics, and I think we had a stretch of a couple of months, maybe 5 months left when this all happened. So mentally just very disappointing to have put in so much work and effort for a deadline and then that deadline to be moved.
University of Houston alumni lives and coaches in the United Kingdom and will continue to prepare for the sporting showpiece next year with her former college coach. But despite not being able to dive back into the water just yet, Bouter remains hungry to compete again.
This next year won't so much be a learning year as it will be a perfecting year. Working on maintaining my strength, just like tweaking my dives that little bit more to get my dives from a 6.5, 7 to a 7.5, 8.
The 24-year-old admits that she had a roller coaster of a ride to get to this point in her career, and that her experience of narrowly missing out on qualifying for the 2016 Rio Games has added to her fuel now to keep pushing to realize her lifelong dream of representing the Rainbow Nation at an Olympic Games in the sport she loves. CS du Plessis, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
The Olympic Games have never been postponed until Tokyo 2020. Let's find out more in this special segment, Olympics in History.
Olympic torch burns once more with the pomp of the ages.
Since the first modern Olympic Games were held in 1896, only 3 have been abandoned. One, the First World War that erupted in 1914 and lasted until 1918, led to the first cancellation of the Berlin 1916 Olympics. The event, known as the Games of the Sixth Olympiad, was said to be centered at the new purpose-built Deutsches Stadion, which was opened in 1913. The second is when Japan invaded China in 1937. The international community prevailed upon the country to surrender the hosting rights of the 1940 Summer Games in Tokyo and the Winter Games in Sapporo. Now, as a result, the Swedish capital Helsinki was awarded the Summer Games, while the winter event went to German town Garmisch-Partenkirchen. However, the outbreak of World War II in 1939 led to the annulment of both events. With the fighting raging on until 1945, the 1944 London Summer Games and Cortina d'Ampezzo Winter Games in Britain and Italy became the third Olympic Games to be cancelled. Now, the outbreak of the global novel coronavirus pandemic forced organizers and the International Olympic Committee to postpone both Tokyo 2020 Summer and Winter Games by a year to 2021.
This postponement is the first ever postponement of Olympic Games in Olympic history.
With no COVID-19 vaccine cleared for mass production yet, the IOC and Japan organizers have not ruled out the cancellation of the rescheduled Tokyo 2020 Olympics altogether. So, potentially, this could be the first Olympic Games to be abandoned in the peacetime era.
Despite the ups and downs of the Tokyo 2020 Olympics postponement and South Africa's long-lasting lockdown, its national rowing team hasn't slowed down its training regimen. Now, Rowing SA returns to training on the water with strict social distancing conditions to follow. CGTN's Julie Shire met up with some of South Africa's rowing squad members.
I think there's something special about South Africa. There's many odds against us, politically, financially, but there's a will always to do well. And we certainly take that in how we row. Rowing is not supposed to come from Africa or South Africa. It's mainly a European sport. I love that challenge of being proven wrong and saying, well, I think we actually can do it. The arms just open. The top boat that came out of South Africa post-apartheid was Ramon de Clemente and Donovan Czech. They got that bronze medal in Athens in 2004. And then we went on to 2012, where the lightweight four of Sizwe Ndlovu, James Thompson, John Smith and Matthew Britton won gold. It was very emotional and tough. There was so much going through my head, and I needed to take care of actually just spending time with each athlete and saying, okay, well, this is the news. I think they first took away the qualification, so we were trying to qualify 2 more boats. So when they cancelled that, that was hugely devastating for the athletes that still needed to qualify.
It was very tough. It was a big blow. I was really looking forward to it. Things were going well. Hopefully I can get up to the same sort of standard for next year.
It wasn't an easy place mentally to work for 4 years and not get your shot because I was currently in the 4-man boat and we still needed to qualify. That was devastating, hard news to take, but the fact that it's postponed, that brought great relief, and now we got 1 more year to go.
I found it quite hard. I think I went through periods of depression. Dreams were shattered. I mean, we're supposed to go to the Olympic Games, we're supposed to go traveling, and all of that was taken away from us. So I think it's been quite hard to wrap my head around all of it.
Getting into lockdown was a huge emotional period of dealing with the Olympics being postponed for many athletes and coaches. We set up everyone at home, and we had meetings every day on Zoom, 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day, keeping the athletes training and just staying motivated and not trying to think too far ahead.
I think it's been a bit challenging in the beginning, but I think we really found our groove and we've done exceptionally good work during this time.
There's only one goal, and that's to win. None of us would be here if it wasn't for going for top 1. The only reason I've trained for 4 years is to be Olympic champion.
We've got to dream big, you know. I have a silver medal. My goal for next year is gold, for sure.
Dreams may have been put on hold for next year, but the hope of Olympic glory remains as strong as ever. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
The Olympic Games is not only about speed, skill, flair, or teamwork. Join us tomorrow as we take a look at athletes in strength and agility sports in Africa. Back to you in studio.